Welcome to the Vision Profiles podcast. Join us, two dedicated Apple Vision Pro users, as we dive into everything from hardware and software to apps and the latest updates in the world of Apple Vision Pro. I'm Marty Gencius, happen to be a faculty member at Kent State University, but primarily a podcaster and an avid Apple product fan.
And I'm Eric Bolden. I work in IT, but my interest is in finding interesting ways to share content, currently photography of plants, birds, and panoramic sequences.
With us today, we have Nyasha Gwaza, and Eric kind of introduced us to Nyasha with by saying, hey, I've got this guest. And I would like to, Eric, why don't you maybe introduce him a little bit more and then let him introduce himself?
Yeah, it's always better to let the guests introduce themselves. But in this particular case, there was some arm twisting because, the Apple Vision can be a little bit expensive. So if you can split the cost across a couple of people, then you're all set. So yeah.
he's one of the shared parents, custody parents, right?
Who is saying, I don't remember having custody recently. It's been quite some time, huh?
So why don't you introduce yourself, Nyasha?
Well, thanks for having me, guys. My name is Nyasha Gwaza. I'm also in IT, mostly in support and Windows support. But I am an avid fan of Apple products as well. And we kind of got in together this joint custody thing of the Vision Pro, and I think it's been working out pretty well, and I'm happy to be a guest today.
Can I ask both of you, since we have two of the three parents involved, how does that work? Do you have one account that you use and you just share the headset, or do you have to reboot and reset up the process from person to person?
We are now doing the reboot and then let each person set it up for themselves.
So that you didn't start with that?
No. Initially, I just said, hey, here it is. I downloaded all the apps that are available that looked remotely interesting. I signed up for stuff. I added movies. I put my Disney account. I put my Apple TV account, put all of that in, and go play. Let me know what you find out. If you need another app, let me know and I'll add it, and we'll see how it works.
Well, we're going to get particularly into what Nyasha is doing with his part when he gets it. What he nukes and paves and what he puts on it. Do you nuke and pave it before you switch the kid back to somebody else? Oh, okay. All right. So
otherwise you have that situation where it may not let you wipe it, or you have to send somebody that Apple password because it's still tied to you, and Find My gets confused. And
okay.
And I did discover that if you pass it back and forth and two IDs are being used on the same device at the same time, it gets annoyed, and then you get the error saying, hey, we're not going to let you do anything for 90 days because you can only use one Apple ID. So if you're going to use one account and share it, don't let the other person put their account in and try and buy an app, because that goes horribly wrong.
Okay, so the nuke and pave is necessary to avoid all of that anyway.
That's much easier.
Okay, well, we'll get into Nyasha's use after we go through some news. This is how we're doing the show. We're going to cover Vision Pro news, and then we're going to feature our discussion about Nyasha's work and particularly how he uses the Apple Vision Pro headset. So from the news accounts, it's interesting week. There's not anything that stands out, but there are some articles that I found that I had to do some digging. I'm getting better at digging out articles, I think. That's one of the skills that I've picked up over the last couple of weeks. And the first one was just an interesting piece that the Vision Pro hasn't come out in the UK yet, but it is already receiving an award. They call it the prestigious UK award. It is the Black Pencil Design Award, and I don't know anything about UK design, but apparently really big. And good news for Apple. They were kind of highlighting the kinds of things that were going on with Vision Pro in particular. And they also gave them a graphite pencil award for use of XR in the process. And I'll put the links, all these links will be in the show notes. And what happens with that is you can read all the wonderful things that Apple said about receiving the award. Any comments from either of you about the design piece?
I still think it's interesting that the device isn't there yet. They still felt it important enough to give it an award. It's a good sign. It certainly deserves many awards for design. Apple
Yeah.
went all out on it.
Yeah, I quite agree. I think, I mean, at least from my experience of it, it's worthy of many many awards. But I'm just left to wonder, how or what criteria they were using. Did they have people in the UK who had it, or how that went about? But it's certainly worthy of.
We know there are people in the UK that have it. I mean, as we've talked about InSpace app, there are people all over the world who have it. It's interesting about this release, but I agree with you. I wonder, what's the criteria? I think, the funny thing is people looked at it and said, oh, that's too big. That's too clunky. That's too ugly. I don't like the googly eyes, all these kinds of things about it. But I think this award was really for the concept of spatial computing. The article talks about that and the possibility of what it can be used for in terms of design. Another interesting article, NVIDIA, and this is a little bit, I think, about practical application and use. You have to really read through this article. I don't understand all the technicalities of what's going on in it, but it has a killer little video that goes with it that shows how Apple Vision Pro is being used from a design standpoint to give designers options, including with the right software that I guess NVIDIA has. They're able to shift around the direction of the lighting on an object that they're creating. And it really is pretty powerful. This comes from the NVIDIA site, and it's back from March 18th, but it was just re-released and shared with how this is being built in directly and is being used by NVIDIA developers and could be used for other companies who are developing. Again, a lot of stuff in there that I don't quite understand. If you're really into video cards and design, this might be an article you want to take a closer look at.
It was interesting just from the standpoint of corporate use of the Apple Vision Pro, and kind of one of the ways where it's easily justified as a tool, just so that this other tool that generates dual video streams has a place to send that is a standard piece of equipment that's less expensive than $10,000 or $20,000 workstation setups. So there's a lot of possibility there, I think, going forward. And we might see a lot more industry use for specific applications in design where it ends up actually being a relatively cost-effective solution.
I mean, Apple's not churning out these articles. These are coming from different points in industry, but I think this is a case where these kinds of articles just help Apple in terms of its device. Going to go on to the next one, which I bumped into this. I don't know where I found this. But through various searches, this obscure startup unveils record-breaking LED display that would be perfect for the next Apple Vision Pro. And this comes off of Tech Radar, and it goes into micro LED, and the development of this by a startup called QPixel, and the Silicon Catalyst portfolio company has taken advantage of what QPixel has created in terms of a startup, and is looking at creating these micro OLED displays. And even Apple talks a little bit about getting into those kinds of displays. And this might be, I read it and I said, this is a company Apple should buy. Control the patents, control the device, but these are supposedly able to put out 6,800 pixels per inch, whereas the Apple LED is 3,380 pixels per inch. And so a much sort of tighter display. The development, I got the impression that this was going to be cheaper and that cost-wise, more cost-efficient. Apple just came out with the tandem LED on their iPads, where still can't quite figure that out. They did some in the keynote about it, but I'm wondering, are they going to go with a tandem technology for the next version of Vision Pro, or are they going to look at these kinds of options with micro LEDs?
Yeah, I don't know. This is really early, but seeing that kind of pixel density, I think, is encouraging. Anytime you can get some competition going on between manufacturers, it's a good thing. And this looks like they made a nice jump. I don't know what the trade-offs are or power utilization, but it certainly is looking good, and they seem happy with it. So
Yeah, I think it's encouraging to see some startups doing this. And it goes back to Eric's point earlier of corporate use of the Vision Pro, and I think that's a good thing, that there's a little bit of innovation going on, a lot more innovation going on in the corporate world.
Yeah, this talks about micro LED pixels deliver higher brightness, faster response, and better energy efficiency, making them ideal for the next Apple Vision Pro. They talk about an interesting thing that they do. I don't quite understand this, but one of the major hurdles in commercializing micro LED displays has been the complex and costly process of assembling and testing millions of individual red, green, blue micro LED subpixels. QPixel's approach to tackling this challenge is by replacing the 3 RGB subpixels with an individual, fully color tunable pixel. I would imagine that would also be an energy saver in the process. Yeah, interesting.
That's interesting. Yeah.
With billions and billions of dollars that Apple has, just buy this company before they get in partnership with someone else. Buy it and bury it, or buy it and use it. I hate to say buy it and bury it. That's a lot of people's hard work, but that's I think what Apple should be really looking at in terms of this. Get the patents, Another article where we talk about, there's been some immersive stuff that's come out this week. I don't know if either of you have had an opportunity to try the immersive things that have come out. There's an article in Apple Insider that talks about the sizzle reel, I guess. I hadn't seen the sizzle reel.
Yeah, they
missed
just
that.
updated it.
Yeah, but I had read this article. I'm like, I guess I didn't look at it. I went right to the parkour.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of clips from that in the sizzle reel.
In the sizzle reel. So,
and I hit the sizzle reel by accident because I didn't even know it was there. But yeah.
And I guess it also has MLB in it, or NBA.
Yeah, and it also has some American football. So for people who weren't as excited about soccer, although I have to say the soccer scenes in the original one were really nice. But they've redone it, so they're cuts now. So we get to see some basketball, we get to see some American football, and it was good. It was nice to see some change ups. I know there are a lot of people who are wondering why they're not just churning this out at a faster rate and we're not seeing full games. But I think many people are discovering it's relatively difficult to edit, and it's difficult to get scenes that look good. When you look at the sizzle reel, when you look at some of the other animation sequences, the ones that look good, the camera is very close to the activity, which means if you're filming across a whole court or a whole field, you're not very close. So the stereo part of it doesn't work as well. It's not as pronounced. So if you look at the sizzle reel, the shots you get are shots that are a camera mounted right behind the net showing you something, a camera mounted right behind the basket showing you something.
Right.
So there's a known distance. So you can get the distance between the two lenses, and the distance to the object you're capturing can be calibrated. And it's a skill set, I think. I don't know if eventually they're going to have cameras where you can move the lenses apart depending on the distance, or it's a little bit complicated. And I think even directing it, that it's been mentioned, is somewhat complicated.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Nyasha, have you seen any of this?
Well,
Even the
I've seen the previous one that they
Yeah.
that had the soccer one, and I totally liked it. I love soccer, so it was something that was particularly of interest to me. And I mean, kind of the camera work,
Yeah.
I thought was very powerful in that, you know, and being so close to the action and on the field and
Yeah,
everything. That's an entirely different experience of watching the game.
I get what Eric is saying. If you think about the soccer one, I was impressed with the cameras that were above the net,
Yep.
but downfield, you didn't get to see much of what was going on downfield. Actually, where you get that spatial depth is some of the crowd shots when they're, then it's like, wow. Or when they're doing the award ceremony at the end and you're in the middle of it, then it's like, wow.
In the party scene at the end.
At the end, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this new venture, I haven't looked at the sizzle reel. I had read something that somebody said they had to take a piece of it out, they didn't explain why, but they also, what, Eric?
I thought that they had removed something from the previous one.
Was that the basket?
Yeah, because there was like a basketball sequence or something they had to pull out. So I don't know if they only had short-term licensing for it or if there was something else that was going on.
Yeah, the other thing was somebody commented, and I haven't seen it yet, that when the basketball, apparently there's a shot where the basketball comes at you, and they were saying, yeah, I flinched on that one because it was a little too much. These things usually, I don't do well with vertigo with some of this stuff. Like I will not do the high wire one, and some of the panning shots on the immersive dinosaur ones where it's going up the side of the hill where the dinosaurs are. That a little queasy. So I ventured into the parkour one feeling, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this whole thing. Not a problem, but also very interesting how they did the camera shots on that. It felt less immersive than maybe the soccer did, or definitely than the high wire piece did. But it still was very interesting camera shots. And as Eric, as you said, part of this is training directors how to take film in this spatial photography. So a couple articles on that, just a general article on from Apple Insider. Then there's an article that I've attached that's just about the Vision Pro adventure parkour in Paris. And so, yeah, those were two things that I think those again will be in the notes. I found an article that was like, is F1 what's the killer app for Apple? And there's a link in the show notes that take you to a YouTube video that is about a minute, 2 minutes and 43 seconds. It shows how a startup is looking at incorporating F1. Now, somebody says I should get into F1. It's another expensive subscription that I probably won't use. But in order to get the full benefit of the Vision Pro app with F1, you've got to have the subscription to go with it. If they start adding stuff in like that's in this video where you can see the overlay of the track, you can see where the cars are. You can see data on the side. They're doing some of that with MLB now. And you can switch out and see some of that on live games. It used to only be on, or when I first started looking for it, it was only on completed games. Now they're able to do it with live games, which makes MLB a lot more interesting. I wish I was down on the field more. I wasn't getting wide angle shots of what's going on. I wish cameras were placed around the field, but still the enhanced version of it. So F1, I don't know if you looked at this and if you have any comments on it.
I haven't
Yeah.
seen. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was saying I thought it was pretty cool because it's something that I watch Formula One quite a bit, and it's usually what they're trying out there is usually somewhere in the corner of the screen where you're seeing the track and the tracking of where the lead vehicles are, So this brings it right out to the front of the TV or to the front of the action, and I thought that was a good concept. And you said that you have seen this with baseball now. Yes,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
It's something I thought that would really enhance the experience of a game or the Formula One racing.
Yeah, there's an option in MLB that will take your full screen. And if you, I don't know, there's an icon on it that will click it and put it up as a separate window. And then on the side, you'll start getting stats. And down at the bottom, what you'll do is you get the pitch window. So as the pitches come in, you'll see where, as you usually see it imaged over on a live game, you'll see it within the screen frame. So that's pretty cool.
I noticed on there's a golf app that when they do the swing, you get to see the animation of the golf ball and trajectories. So maybe that's something that they'll start doing in a lot of the sports apps, adding animation, because the animation is easier to control the depth.
Yeah.
And you can give it the better look, or even the airplane takeoff and landing for the different airports where you can see the track of the plane going. So that's really kind of neat.
Next article is from Patently Apple, I guess a site that follows Apple's patents. And they talk about 5 Apple patents that were published to cover packaging and fabrics for Vision Pro. And it's interesting. I was reading it and I thought, oh, this is just about how they're going to package the optics. So when you buy the lenses that you need, and I thought, okay, well, I guess they need to put a patent on that. But then they went into some light source stuff. And I'm not that knowledgeable about patents and patent use, but they went into some light source stuff and electronic devices with stretchable fabrics. Head-mounted device may include a main housing portion with displays that display images and optical modules through which the images are viewable from an iBox. So Apple's obviously looking at patents, or obviously creating some stuff for redesign and trying to lock down those patents.
Yeah, I find it interesting the amount of time they spent discussing, light blocking fabrics and how do you keep it dark enough, and that seemed to be an important part.
Again, I'll put the link to it for those who are interested in looking at the designs. And then the final is a digital pet. New startup builds digital pets for Apple Vision Pro. Interesting article. I think the most, all 3 of us have been in space, and in space they have a pet in the room that you're in that rolls around and looks out the window, doesn't do much, but there's rumor that pet is going to start being more interactive. This is an interesting little article that talks about a startup that is actually in Vietnam. Vietnam-based Bootloader Studio combines AI and spatial computing to change the way humans interact with technology. They talk about not wanting to do a human, but having something that you don't have to interact with necessarily language-wise, because they said you've got too much of that in other places. So you just want a pet. You can have a pet. They talk about COVID influencing it because people needed something to interact with.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Maybe some of us who love dogs but can't really take care of them, this would be something to think about and own.
The article talks about Sony's robot dog, artificial intelligence bot, Aibo, was introduced 25 years ago, and then Tamagotchis. I don't know if you remember Tamagotchis, those little
Yeah.
handheld devices that were part of it. So it's an interesting article. I think if there's a digital pet out there, I'll probably get it, and I'll ignore it like I do my analog pet that's out in the hall right now. One thing I forgot to mention, and it was another patent article that I saw, was there was this little, I wish I could remember the name. Apple had created this thing, I think called a gemstone, and it was a handheld device that you put in your hand. And there was some suggestion that they were going to extend that patent into something that could be used for Apple Vision Pro. That you could be doing some things with a device in your hand that you can't do very well just touching and clicking together. The idea of using this thing, that project that they kind of dropped that never. Now they're also talking about an Apple Ring. So looking at a project that they've dropped and repurposing it for use with Vision Pro. So that's all I got on news articles this week. And as I said, all of these links will be posted. And Eric, why don't you start off with our guest?
Well, I guess let's jump into it. Nyasha, it's my fault you haven't seen the new clips. So what have you been able to experience while you still had custody?
Well, so when I still had custody, that was probably about the time of the In Space release.
Yeah.
And so from initially just watching movies, 3D movies on in the Vision Pro, I was pretty excited when that came out, the In Space, and the interaction with individuals was mind blowing. And so that experience is, I think, I because initially I was just using it, just for the movies and some TV series and stuff like that. But I found myself having late nights, staying in the In Space app, interacting with people from all over the world. And yeah, and I think one of the things that is kind of a pain of dual ownership is once you have released the custody, you hear so much more going on, and it's just that feeling of can't wait to experience the new stuff that's coming on. So the stuff we've been discussing earlier, the new clips that are out, those are some things that I've eagerly been waiting for my next round of custody to.
Which is in 2 days, is that right?
Tomorrow, probably.
Tomorrow, yeah, and it's actually exciting to be able to be going for my next round. Yeah.
Have you tried any workflow stuff with it, or has it mainly been entertainment? And
so mostly it's been entertainment and social, and one of the things that I'm eagerly waiting on and keeping an eye on is that Amaze VR concert app. I'm just looking forward to them having more artists on there. Seeing what that develops into. But it's as it stands now. I like the ones that are already on there. I think I've subscribed to them all now. The ones that they've released. And that's been some good experiences for me.
What did you originally think you were going to use the Apple Vision Pro for? Was it just movies or what?
So originally, because I'd been looking at houses and things like that. And so the 3D view of a house and stuff, I thought that would be pretty cool in it. And I think you did mention that there was something that had come up in that. So that's one of the things that really got me interested in doing that, and it turned out that, I mean, I got really into the movie watching, and that really enhanced my. I never really spent a lot of time watching movies, like in my Apple TV app, but that really got me to be fully engrossed in the entertainment aspect of it, and so initially it was the toss up between the movies and the house viewing and things like that really drew me into it. But then In Space came along, and in a previous episode I heard you guys talk about the kind of like immersive movie experience where you get other people in the theater. So I've yet to experience that, and
Yeah.
one of the things that I'm really looking forward to doing when I get it in for my next round.
Well, we need to keep in touch, and we'll take a shot at it. One of the things that I think we both found difficult was it's hard to figure out how to do it, and everything that says you should logically get it, it doesn't always work that way. So, you and I can connect through InSpace and find a time where we can try that demo of doing an immersive theater experience. It really is pretty cool. I did notice that it looks like InSpace has got scheduled a spatial viewing party coming up in the next day or so. So, and it looks like there are already like 20 people signed up for it, which is always the massive problem. So,
So is there a limit to how many people can?
Well, for the spatial viewing, it's only 5 that you can do. So those 20 will have to organize in a way, get out of InSpace, because you can't start it from within InSpace. You have to start it outside. Then you have to be friends with each other so you can message them outside of InSpace. You can message them through FaceTime, and then it'll recognize. You'll have an option when your notification comes up. If I was to message you, the notification will come up, and then there'll be the option to do it in spatial, and you have to click an icon on to make it work. And then once you're in there, you're good to go. Then, we can. I think we both have to own the same movie.
Okay.
So I own about 500 or so. I have a lot of movies, and there might be some stuff that's already in Apple TV that we share. Watch the parkour together or something like that. That we could do, but I want to get better at knowing how to do that. So it's not the excuse is not just helping you out to experience it, because I was a first timer once and I was blown away. It's kind of fun to take somebody someplace that you've been to that they're going to be blown away by it. So that's part of it. The other part of it is I want to get better at doing this. So you're kind of helping me out with it too.
That will be great. I have been looking forward to this for a long month.
So are there any apps that you, besides that you might recommend that you've mentioned, or?
I haven't really explored a lot of the newer apps.
With the house thing, have you been using Zillow? I think Zillow.
Yeah, the Zillow.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been using. But other than the Amaze VR and in space, I haven't really. I think my next round of ownership of this whole custody, I'll be trying to explore a lot more of the apps, and one of the other things I've been wanting to do, the taking of pictures now.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some of the pictures that Eric has taken. He shared some of them with me, and they were mind blowing. So I've been kind of encouraged to look into that as well.
Yeah. I would like to try to do some more video, but unfortunately my house is not really bright. The community that I live in is not always bright, and I don't have something that I think I can do a video of. I lead kind of an not so out there life. And if I try to put it on at a family gathering, I'll just get taunted. Even if I try to say this is for the greater good, they'll say, no, I don't do that. So I'd like to get more into the video recording part of it, but that's not, that just doesn't fit my world right now.
Yeah, there've been a few other apps. I'm forgetting the name, Eric. The one where people post from different parts of the world pictures and video.
Oh yeah, there's a couple of those where you can post spatial video and panoramas. Yeah, I'm blanking on the name too, but we
I
could
think on the
probably
last
add
day of my custody, I looked into that. I just saw a few of the places. I'm originally from Zimbabwe, so there were a few pictures of the Victoria Falls there. So I saw that and immediately had to give up custody after that. But it's something that I'll be looking forward to exploring.
It's the app you're thinking of is Share Spatial. We've talked about
exactly.
Yeah, and it's very cool. It's you can just spin the globe and go where you want to go. I put some 360 pictures, panorama pictures on that I've done when I was in Ireland and my trips to Turkey and even some in Northern California. I haven't done video yet, and that's the piece I'd like to contribute to. But Share Spatial, there are a couple because like Eric said, I bumped into one and I tried it and I'm like, oh, this is just like the other one. So we're starting to see some duplication in app work. So can we talk about some apps and then we'll close out the show? There's a couple that I like to get packages. That's a problem. But I've used a couple of different package apps, but now they have partial for the Apple Vision Pro. And I'm not sure, it adds some elements in it that we'll put up in full screen versus what you get on the phone app with it. But that's an app that's out there if you want to use it to track packages or get notifications about packages. MindNode is a mind mapping software. That is pretty good. It is ones that it's a. I'm looking at the notes on it now.
Mm-hmm.
It works really well in terms of thinking ideas and placing them out spatially. If you want to do that and do that with the comfort of your headset on. Eric, you've got some notes in about still using apps.
Oh yeah. So I'm still using Aftership, which is a phone and an iPad app, but it does work on the Vision Pro.
Oh, okay.
But I had talked briefly about Screens 5, a remote desktop connection. And sometimes, you get an app, you download it and you try it a little bit and that's okay, but that's the last time you use it. I'm finding I'm still using it. It's still useful. It's really useful if you have a keyboard and a trackpad, then you can remote into all kinds of things and do, unlike the Screen Connect with a Mac right next to you, you can do this to a machine that's at a distance. So that's really helpful.
But you need to have that app also loaded on the computer that you're trying to link to. Am I correct?
No. You just have to have screen sharing turned on.
Okay.
You do need a helper app if it's on a network you can't get to. But a lot of times I'm just trying to connect to a machine that's at the other end of the house.
Yeah. Okay.
It's too far away for me to do the sharing.
To get up and walk.
Yeah, right. So that it works. And it also works connecting to work too, but that's a lot of times easier to connect to a machine and have that machine do the connection, because it can keep it going whether or not I'm doing something else. And then there's, I do a lot of stuff in a terminal. So there's an app called Termius that I use on my iPad. It also works on the Apple Vision. And it's just nice because it gives you a whole pile of buttons for escape key and all of the other keys that you don't you can't easily get to, and you can combine sequences of commands and issue them, through a button click, so that, it makes it easier to connect and do things remotely.
Yeah, I think there are some terminal apps in Vision Pro too in the space. I want to mention a couple of more. Two apps that I thought, well, I know I've got one, but I don't have the other. And then when I put the headset on, I had both. But I had been using Sky Guide, which is pretty cool in terms of looking up at constellations. They light up and you pull them down, and you can read about them and things like that. But then Night Sky also is a interesting app. I was playing with it before we got on the air. The idea is similar sort of thing. You set your location. It gives you what the constellations are around you at the time. And you can set up a pre-programmed tour from short, medium to long, where you have someone reading you about the constellations as they bring them down. And then you can flip them around and look at them from different angles. So what we see in the sky is kind of a flattened version of a three-dimensional set of stars. Pretty cool. And a lot to it that I haven't explored yet. So Sky Guide or Night Sky, both of them are apps that you're going to have to get into.
Is that the same as the one on that you can get from the iPhone app?
Yes, yeah. The thing is that you can do in the spatial computing, what they've done in spatial computing is really kind of blown it up so you can use that, whereas you can't do that on a flat surface as well. Scope VR and Spatial Media Toolkit are two apps that take, and I'm saying this because I know you're both into photography, that take two-dimensional pictures and add a third dimension, can pull them out so they're spatial. A Spatial Media Toolkit is a paid app, and I can't remember what I paid for, probably $30 or something like that. Scope VR is a app that works with tokens, and I just added that because I heard about it last week, and it gives you 5 tokens a day. I don't think they're carried over because you can also buy a bunch of tokens that are then carried over for cost. I have to tell you, I really prefer Spatial Media Toolkit. It does a better job of separation, and there's a slider where you can determine the separation of the items in the picture. Scope VR, unless you're at the lowest level of separation, anything higher, you wind up getting sort of double images, like a bigger shape of someone behind him. That's a freebie. You can play with it, and you can see the differences between the two. But after playing with Scope VR, I went back because I knew I wanted to talk about the other one, which does some remarkable, and that's Spatial Media Toolkit. That app costs though. So those are the apps I wanted to throw out for this week. And a big thank you to our visitor for joining us.
Very, very happy to have been here and been part of the discussion.
I kind of want to have you come back every 4 weeks or so, every round of until you finally buy your own Apple Vision Pro. And you're not waiting for the child to come. You're not missing the child. And then you're not overindulging in the child when the child comes. But just to see how things change for you over the months of your shared custody. So want to thank Nyasha Gwaza, who is with us tonight. And is one of the co-parents of Eric's Vision Pro. So thanks for joining us. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Apple Vision Profiles podcast. Our background music, Free Jazzy, is courtesy of Steve Combs from the Free Music Archive. We'd love to hear from our listeners. If you have an idea or you want to join in on an episode, email us at visionprofilespodcast visionprofiles@gmail.com. Learn more about us and Vision Profiles podcast on the website at visionprofiles.info, where you can also fill out our contact form, email us directly to get involved in participating in a show. Spread the word to other visionaries. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.